Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee for Monday, October 1st, 2012. I'm Paul Krikorian, Chair of the committee. I'm joined by the Honorable Mitchell Englander and the Honorable Paul Koretz. So we have a quorum. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We're going to be taking public comment before the discussion of our regular agenda items. So if you would like to provide any public comment either on an agenda item or on a matter that's within the general jurisdiction of this committee, please fill out a white card and bring it forward. As of now, we have no cards, so hurry up and fill them out if you want to get them in. We're going to be hearing a number of closed session items today, which we're going to take first in ordinary agenda order. And so I don't see anybody who seems to be furiously filling out a comment card, is there, for items number 1 or 2? Seeing none, then we're going to close public comment for those items, and we'll proceed into closed session for items number 1 and 2, and then we'll resume with our regular agenda. So if you're not here on items 1 or 2, I'd ask that you please step out, and we'll begin with those matters. Good. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. That brings us to item number 3.
Yep. Item 3 is Community Development Department report in response to budget motion from Englander Carnets relative to identifying additional funds for the New Horizons Adult Learning Center expansion project.
We have anybody here on item number 3?
CDD.
Good afternoon, May Smith from CDD.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, when can we expect a broader CDD reprogramming report that talks about, in a broader sense, the surplus funds that may be available and how we prioritize those sorts of reprogrammings? Is that effort underway?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the effort is underway. And CDD is expecting to hold a meeting with the CLA and CAO and various family to conduct a thorough meeting.
Okay. And the particular source of the funds that we're approving today is a project that is not moving forward. You've confirmed that project is not moving forward.
Correct, Mr. Chair, that project has been canceled.
Okay. Mr. Englander.
Yeah, I just got yet another update, and thank you for working with us on this as well, and I thank CD14 for that. If we could, there's one other matter I did need to look into, as it turns out, so if we could continue this for 2 weeks and then just bring it back.
I'd be happy to do that. Okay.
It's minor, but nevertheless.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So that matter will be continued for 2 weeks, and
Okay.
that brings us to item number 4.
Item 4 is the city clerk report relative to the annual report for the volunteer trust fund, number 892 for fiscal year 2011-12.
We have someone here on the volunteer trust fund?
Miranda Pastor, Office of the City Clerk. This
Hi.
is our annual report for this trust fund, $2,608 and, let's see, 22 cents, I'm sorry, $2,808.22 were spent from the fund.
And we should, this typically would just be a consent matter, but I have to admit, I don't remember having seen this before. Can you just give an overview of what the volunteer trust fund is? What it does?
The Volunteer Trust Fund is set aside for the mayor's office for volunteer projects such as the crisis, what is it called?
Crisis response team.
Crisis response team. And the funding so far that has been spent is for the crisis response team.
And the source of the funding for the trust fund is philanthropic sources mostly?
Donations.
Okay. Any questions on this, members?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The action of the committee without objection to note and file the clerk's communication.
Yep.
And that brings us to
Item 5.
item 5.
Item 5, which is the CAO's report relative to the first construction projects report for fiscal year 2012-13. And we did have an addendum memorandum that was released on September 20th as well.
Thank you, Ray. My name is Alma Gibson with the CAO's office. Yes, as Ray has indicated, this is our first construction report for this fiscal year, and the addendum report is simply just a technical correction in controller's instructions related to the 6th Street Viaduct Improvement Project. It's just additional, again, controller's instructions. This report basically provides a brief status of all our major capital improvement expenditure program projects, as well as our general bond program projects. General obligation bond, excuse me. It also includes, as our other future CPRs will include, the funding adjustments related to the various city construction projects. These funding adjustments are usually necessary in order to keep these projects on track. Of the total $9.2 million that's currently recommended in this report for transfers and appropriations, approximately 4.2 is recommended for appropriations to GSD to perform construction work on various projects. And these projects consist of deferred maintenance work primarily, hazardous materials abatements at various city departments, as well as work on energy conservation projects and asset management, residential management work. And it also includes some funds for GSD to perform construction work at the LAPD SID Tech Lab and to perform improvements at several recreational park projects. Finally, I do want to point out that one of the things that we were requested to include in this report is what the estimated impact is due to operations and maintenance costs for these transactions, including in the report. We're estimating, that approximately $62,000 will be impacted due to primarily improvements to the Mid-Valley Intergenerational Center. Basically, it's because it involves refurbishment of the current property as well as outdoor recreational development. These costs will be addressed during the budget process. So I have representatives here who could speak more detailed information regarding the projects and transactions included in the report if you have any questions.
Before we get to questions, I just wanted to mention for our listening audience that we have the great news that we're joined by Councilmember Bill Rosendahl as well. Welcome back, Bill. Good to have you here.
Congratulations.
All right, so I have some sort of substantive questions on some of the individual projects. I don't know if you're ready to take those or not, or if you have people here who can.
Let's see, we'll see.
Yep.
Okay. Well, before I do, why don't I defer to my colleagues first. Mr. Englander, do you have questions on this matter?
I did, but I'll go last. That's
Okay.
Sorry.
Let me just move right in then to a few of mine. First of all, on the alternative fuels program, I'm wondering, is CNG included within the alternative fuel program?
Yes, compressed natural gas fueling facilities are being built throughout the city, yes.
Okay, so are we receiving any support from Sempra or any of the other gas utilities through their public goods charges, anything like that? Have we explored whether we get support for fueling stations through any Sempra mandated programs under PEER or any of the other programs that they are obligated to expend their funds on? If
I'm
not,
not aware of that now, but I will look into it with
Let's check it out.
GSD's fueling
Check it
group,
out.
yes.
And the neighborhood city hall for Council District 7. Now, we have a neighborhood city hall in Council District 7 in Sumnadahunga, the office that I used to sit in. And I'm wondering if we're building a new one now, what is that going to become surplus property, or or is it going to be additional to that?
Let me answer that.
You want, okay.
Maria Cardenas with the CAO's office, Municipal Facilities Group. This neighborhood city hall, it's in Pacoima. It's on Van Nuys Boulevard. The facility is built and it's partially occupied.
Okay. So what's the plans for, I mean, are we just going to continue to have the two North Valley City Halls then?
At this point, we're looking for, CD7 is working on identifying tenants to occupy the balance of the building. And as far as I know, the Sunland
Yeah,
neighborhood city hall is still operational.
okay.
One of the things that...
I'd have a strong concern if that building were to be considered surplus and shut down. So that's my concern, is that, you know, if there's a need to have both of those offices up there, okay, but I would have a real concern if we were moving in the direction of shutting down the Tahunga office.
At this point, I've never heard a discussion in that direction. There was a need for a neighborhood city hall in Pacoima, and it was built.
Okay, and so the AB 1290 funds are not going to be necessary for that project, right? It's going to be funded entirely from MICLA and the...
There was $1.2 million in AB 1290 that was provided for this project.
But
The
then,
AB 1290 funds were transferred years ago. And there was $3 million that was transferred for this project. This project used $1 million to the balance of the AB 1290 monies are being used for the Mid-Valley
right,
Intergenerational
right,
Center.
that's
And-
where I was going.
yes.
So that 1.2 that was AB 1290 for the City Hall is now going to go to the Intergenerational Center.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, on the ARA Qualified Energy Conservation Bond projects, I noticed that the city received an allocation of about $40 million for issuance of energy conservation bonds. And we've so far issued 12 million of those, is that right?
Yes.
Right, that's correct.
What's the holdup on issuing the other $28 million worth?
Maybe if, I don't know if somebody from GSD is here, they could help us, but the city went through a very lengthy process to identify at least 20% energy savings in a variety of buildings that was needed in order to access both the quality energy conservation bond monies and these energy conservation bond monies. We do have the additional capacity. We're working on a program with the Bureau of Engineering and the Department of General Services to try to get some of the civic center buildings doing high-grade energy audits to determine whether there is work that could also qualify for those funds.
Okay,
And we'll be reporting back hopefully within 90 days on that,
to
to
whom?
use the additional.
I'm sorry, you'll be reporting back to whom on that?
We're reporting back to the Municipal Facilities Committee and then to council.
Okay. Can you please provide that report to my office as well, so I can make a determination of whether I want to have that come
Definitely.
before this committee?
Mhm.
Thank you. And then finally, on the Children's Museum, there's a transfer of $440,000, and there's a discussion of that. Didn't we, not long ago in council, reprogram a number of millions of dollars to ensure the continued progress of the Children's Museum project? And have we still not finished the funding of that, even with that? There's still more to go?
That is correct. The acquisition, the construction of the project was about $22 million. The balance of the work that's needed is about $23 million. The city is working with the Discovery Science Center of Santa Ana. We have a big funding request that's going before the First Five LA board. We're asking for assistance from Sanitation and Department of Water and Power to fund theme-related projects. The $9.7 million that the council approved in MICLA and general fund is still there. There's still a gap. And we anticipate that we'll have that addressed by November of this year.
Okay. So if it's not, and if we get to a point where we're not going to make the March 2015 project completion deadline, I assume that these reprogrammed funds, the MICLA funds and other that we just approved, will revert.
Right. The monies will not be used if the project doesn't go forward.
Okay.
But at this point, we have, assuming that all the funding is in place in November, we have at least 8 to 9 months of additional time before it gets critical.
Okay.
So it's a good pace right now.
All right. Mr. Kratz, do you have anything on this?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there are any trends in construction. I mean, are we doing more than we were, less than we were last year, previous years, and what types of things influence any trends in what we spend on construction, how many projects we have, et cetera?
We don't report on transit-related projects through the municipal facilities report. That would go through our fiscal plant group, and we'd be glad to give you that information. I'll talk with the chief of that group.
I'm sorry, did you mean trends?
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said trends in construction work. Has it increased? Has it decreased from prior years?
I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
We actually-
wondering what that answer was about. That didn't make any sense.
I'm sorry.
We are still seeing very low construction bids.
Yeah.
We've started seeing a little bit of an increase, but we still get many bids for our projects. In 2006 through 2009, we were not. Things were a lot more expensive, but at this point right now, we are still seeing very good results on the construction bids.
And how many projects are we doing? Are we doing fewer projects? Are we doing more projects than we were a few years ago? And what influences that?
Well, just on the city, we're doing fewer projects. We finished the bulk of our Proposition F, Proposition Q, police stations, fire stations, animal shelters, our zoo projects. We actually have savings within the public safety program. We have 4 projects that we're doing with interest earnings and savings. On the fire side, we are doing 2 new fire stations. On the animal side, an additional animal shelter. And on the zoo side, we're now in construction on our last zoo capital program there.
And any of this general funded, or is it all different special funds?
General obligation voter-approved bond funds.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Osno? Mr. Englander?
Yes. Thank you. First of all, it's great to see Bill here. You look fantastic. Thanks, Mitch. A couple just questions on P Prop Q, Public Safety Facilities Bond, as we just went over, on the 4 additional projects, 2 renovation projects at the Police Academy, which I'm aware of, the renovation of 1 police station and the replacement of 1 police station. And where's the police station replacement?
Ramon Soto with the CAO's office. The station replacement we're doing is actually the Northeast Police Station on San Fernando Road.
And we'll be decommissioning the existing?
Yeah, it will be demolished.
Demolished?
Yeah, it's a really bad building. It used to be like a photo shop,
Yeah,
thing.
no, I know. I remember all the...
Yeah, so...
I know the history of it, yeah, okay. just want to make sure we put it all on the record, what's happening with that. I appreciate that. The the Granada Hill Street Maintenance Yard. We have several. Do you know which location that is? That's number G in the report.
Granada Hill Street Maintenance.
No.
No, I don't know the address offhand, but we could get that to you.
Okay. If you can come back and let us know on that.
Actually,
On
it's in my book.
page 16 on the bond projects, we've got the SID lab, the tech lab, and we're using Prop 2 police facilities geo bonds. What's left in the Prop 2? Do we have any balance numbers?
Yeah, at this point, all available balances within Prop 2 funds that are left, it was from 1989. It's an old bond.
No, I know, yeah.
It's all obligated to the SID Tech Lab project. We're hoping that we can get some savings, and if so, they could help us do additional projects.
Can you give us when this comes to council, if you can get some of those numbers to report back on, specifically on the bond projects, on some of the balances on the bond projects and where we're at, even though they perhaps have been encumbered, what's yet unspent? Because typically in what we've been doing is seeing, and because you guys have done such a great job of actually saving money, and costs have gone down in material since we first went out on the geo bonds. And so looking at, I know there's a lot of other demands as well, and just wanted to see how those might be prioritized. But if you can come back with fund balances on where we're at.
Yeah, we can report back. For the Proposition Q program, there was about $85 million that was programmed for the Phase 2 program. For the Proposition F program, we did get the 2 fire stations. So I know that at this point, the savings or the monies that have accrued from the time that we last adjusted the program would probably be under $1 million or $2
Well, if we,
in each
yeah,
program.
that would be great to know. For example, Fire Station 83, you're mentioning a floor repair. When we went through the budget in the last round, there was one fire station, for example, that I think needed a roof, and we were trying. They had it in the budget. It wasn't all that much money, but they had it in the budget coming out of a line item that somebody on the committee caught and asked. I don't recall the exact conversation.
With you.
And,
Actually,
and we went back and used some of the bond money and said, well, wait a minute,
Right.
we actually have money for that. And we got it done, which is
We
great.
should report
On
that
that,
last Thursday, the $1 million capital repair program for fire stations through Proposition F was approved at the Administrative Oversight Committee meeting in response partially to the instruction from Budget and Finance to use bond monies where available for capital repair.
Yeah, so if you can give us that latest report on balances on the bonds, that would be really helpful. If you've got that readily available to bring forward for that. And then my last question is was another one on Prop Q, and I was trying to read this and figure out, this is for the Police Academy Phase 2 projects. This is a lead and asbestos abatement. And it says here in the report, the Police Academy Administration Building, the work is for lead and asbestos testing in anticipation of major at the Police Academy. And I wasn't sure what that meant.
It's just for one of the elements of the rehabilitation work that needs to be done. So the council has authorized projects, and in the case of the Police Academy, there's 2 phases to the work that's going to be done. However,
So there is a word missing out of the report, is that all?
I apologize for that. Improvements.
Anticipation of major at the police. So
Major improvements,
okay,
major
that's what I
work.
figured, okay.
Good catch.
And then that's part of the transfer of the police station, the Police Academy, what we're doing under the agreement with LAPRAC? And
Correct.
Okay, excellent.
Oh, my goodness.
Would it be available to bring those, just a report as an attachment when this comes to council with the, what's left in the bonds, the balance of those accounts?
Yeah, we can do it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, further to the point about using bond funding where possible, the capital improvement program at the zoo includes $7.9 million from the general fund. Why is that?
I believe initially when the program was first put together, there was some, estimates that were put forward, and when it was determined that at that time, there was going to be some gap funding, and so the general fund was, then used to be able to provide some of that gap funding. However, since then, because of favorable bids for a lot of our projects, we are now resulting in some savings in our projects in the zoo. So basically...
in what budget year was that budgeted?
Say that again?
In what budget year was that 7.9 million budgeted?
Actually, I do have it here. You want me to report back? Okay.
If we could report back on it, a lot of that funding that had to do with the general fund was to pay a settlement. Most of the funding from the general fund was to pay for a settlement. Most of the zoo bond program has been through the voter-approved bond, through MICLA, through the county, and the amount that you see there from the general fund was related to the Children's Discovery Center Front Entry Project, about 2005-06.
Okay. So it has there's no current general fund impact that's not already been...
No.
Okay. Okay. Anything further? Thank you. Members, anything further on this one? Okay, now there was a proposed technical amendment that I just wanted to make sure was part of the record.
It's just controller instructions relative to the 6th Street Viaduct Improvement Program, and it's just in order to ensure that the fund that's being created, all the funding will be placed accordingly. I mean, it's...
Sorry?
It's just to ensure that the funds that are going to be deposited in this new fund that we're asking to be created for this project are going to be done in accordance with the controller's instructions.
And that those funds will be advanced from MICLA rather than
Correct.
expended from
Right.
MICLA.
Yeah,
The
cash flow.
project requires a $98 million cash flow through MICLA that was approved by the council, and in order to be sure that the reimbursements, when they come back from the feds and from the state, are properly accounted for, we're creating a separate 6th Street account so that we don't commingle payments and reimbursements.
All right.
Okay, very good. So with that amendment, then it will be the action of the committee to approve the CAO's recommendations without objection. And we have any cards yet? Then that brings us, I believe, to the end of our business.
Thank
And
you. Mr. Chair?
oh yes, Mr. Kretz.
Before you adjourn, I wonder if we should reopen the items to allow Mr. Rosendahl to vote on.
Oh, yes,
past
indeed.
items.
An excellent suggestion. Thank you. So we can't do that as to the closed session items, but we can certainly do that as to number 3, 4, and 5. The
3 was continued.
3 was continued.
Indeed.
So that brings us to just number 4 and number 5. And Mr. Rosendahl, if you'd like to add on to those, that would be...
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Kretz. So that will be the end of our business, and we are adjourned.
Well, bless you all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.